Once upon a time, I was in Budapest, in Hungary, and Budapest has this wonderful place that is a pinball machine museum. You pay about €5 to get in, and there are 50 pinball machines that you can play for free after that. And me being the freaky weirdo that I am, I decided to take 150 micrograms of LSD and spend the best part of the entire trip, maybe 6 or 7 hours, playing pinball in this dark basement. It was an amazing experience. Playing the pinball itself was, of course, incredibly intense. You're really putting the red dust of phenomenal experience into hyperdrive. You're so in the moment, and yet the mind remains so still and peaceful as this chaos unfolds before you. It was an interesting experience, and I concluded afterwards that pinball in many ways is a fantastic metaphor for human existence on a pretty deep level. The pinball itself has no colour. It is a purely reflective surface. Is launched into the world in a way that we are launched into the world. In existential philosophy, they talk about the thrownness of human existence, how we are thrown into the world, and of course the table represents a whole world. It represents our lives. When we play games, pretty much any game you can think of, I think, perhaps except card games, many games, there is something that we focus on, and when we focus on it, I think we become it. It represents us. The ball represents you. That's why you care so much about it. You are constantly fighting against the inevitable, and a human being is constantly fighting against the inevitable. You're fighting against gravity, and as Radiohead said in High and Dry, was it? Or Fake Plastic Trees, gravity always wins in the end. And the falling of the ball, of course, represents our death. But pinball machines are designed in quite an interesting way, because when the ball dies, when the ball falls into that inevitable chasm at the bottom, there is no transparent mechanism that allows you to see where the ball goes. And that is very much like death, isn't it? When you see a human being die, where they go, you see the body fail, but where the actual being goes is and must always and will always be a mystery to us. And interestingly, as soon as your ball disappears, another identical ball replaces it. And this is an interesting way of looking at death, I think, when you see on the deepest level that a human perceiving subject is identical in every case. It perhaps allows us to feel slightly differently about death. One ball disappears, but an identical ball replaces it. A person in a hospital bed dies, and in the floor beneath them, a baby is born. And whilst their conditions are unique, whilst their conditions are different, whilst our conditions are all different, the actual perceiving subject is identical. It must be identical because of its emptiness. And another thing that made that trip interesting was that the Pinball Machine Museum had pinball machines going back all the way to the 1940s. Excuse me. And I started with those old machines and made my way up to the modern machines. And because of this, it was very much a kind of journey through technological and cultural change. The pinball machines, the older ones, were much slower, and there was a kind of innocence to them. It was all, white people playing cricket, volleyball on the beach, or there was a cricket themed one or a bowling alley themed one. And as it came to the machines in the 60s, it did all become much more psychedelic. As the decades rolled on, it became more and more fast-paced and chaotic and innovative. The technology moved from mechanical to the electronic, and finally in the most recent pinball machines, they were often themed on movies, pretty much all of them themed on movies, and in a way perhaps that represents the way in which our culture has moved away from real world interactions and kind of social experiences like playing cricket or bowling or volleyball, towards an obsession with like fiction, with fictional worlds, and escaping into Hollywood fantasy. Yeah, every table's different. Some more fun than others, and those balls don't get to choose which one they're in, and it's pretty difficult, generally speaking, to get a ball from one table to the other. So perhaps we have some metaphor for privilege and the circumstances of birth as well. Some balls are stuck in the past and some are very much in the modern age. But anyway, it was an interesting use of LSD, and it was fun. It was super fun, and who knows if it's good or bad for the mind. I can't help but think that engaging in a pursuit like that, which requires such focus and attention and reaction time, may be good training somehow. I suppose another interesting thing philosophically about pinball is the absurdity of the score. Like, who really plays pinball for the high score? What does it matter? These numbers seem ridiculously high to the point where they're patently quite meaningless in a way. And once the game is up, well, unless you reach the scoreboard, it's all quite pointless. Why do we try to reach the scoreboard? Just to leave 3 little letters to represent us after we leave. This, I suppose, may represent the folly of humans who try to leave things behind after death. The absurd things like leaving a gravestone or, I don't know, some monument, as if it's you, as if you survive. But we leave the table thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I could put my letters on that permanent memory bank of a pinball machine? And perhaps this is symbolic of our desire to cheat death, to immortalize ourselves, even in the most silly, arbitrary way, so that others will see that we have been here. Anyway, enough of my strange story. I hope you enjoyed it and found it thought-provoking, and perhaps you would consider unusual uses of LSD. Many people tell you to go out into nature. It's wonderful. Many people use them at festivals. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to use LSD in your bedroom and just listen to music alone, where you have all of the comforts of home to feel secure. But I quite like trying these novel and weird applications of LSD. I don't know if it improved my game or not, but I think it probably did, actually, because one can just be so focused on LSD. Truly, the moment is all there is, and the army of thoughts that usually constantly attack us remain at the top of the valley that one can peacefully walk through and enjoy. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.